A man stands in a dark and empty restroom in the middle of nowhere. His face sweats with anxiety as his hand trembles and shakes. An imprint of a wedding ring gone from his finger. He looks up at the mirror, his eyes blackened by darkness. He touches his face as he tries to comprehend reality. The man walks outside to ponder the letter that was recently sent to him from a loved one who had passed away.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you.
This is a very interesting way of starting off a horror game, and Akira Yamaoka absolutely nails the soundtrack in this game. Just so it's out there, I am relatively new to the Silent Hill series. The only game I played prior to the Silent Hill 2 remake was the short message, but if you see that game as more of a playable demo than a full game, then this is my first game in the series, and I know very little about the 2001 original. Konami's remake of Silent Hill 2 has to be one of the best horror games and one of the best video games ever made. This game mentally destroyed me so much that it made me feel like I needed to go to therapy, but in a good way, and I never thought words like that would ever come out of my mouth. Every single voice actor in this game did an amazing job, especially Luke Roberts. His performance as James Sunderland really brought the character to life. The game looks incredible thanks to Unreal Engine 5, even though the atmosphere does have a dated look to it. The amount of detail that exists in this game when it comes to a story that you have to dig below the surface level to find is insane. The gameplay is slow, kinda like Alan Wake 2 in a way. The combat in the Silent Hill 2 remake is actually amazingly well done compared to the awful combat in the Alone in the Dark remake. When it comes to the melee combat, it wouldn't be smart for you to just run up to an enemy and just start mashing the attack button with no thought like you're playing the Final Fantasy VII remake. You, the player, need to learn the enemy's move patterns to learn when to dodge at the right time. You could also sink behind the enemy and strike, or just do what I do, which would be to shoot the enemy in the leg until they're stunned, strike with my melee weapon, and then stomp them like I'm Isaac Clarke from Dead Space. During my first couple hours of the game when I was frustrated with the combat, when I was spamming the right trigger to stomp on the enemy and was hearing the bone cracking sounds, it felt oddly satisfying because I felt like I was getting my feelings out. Now, if you don't stop the enemy enough times after knocking them down, they can and will get back up to attack you again, which is pretty cool. The town of Silent Hill isn't just a setting where the game takes place, but it's also somewhat of a character within the actual game. The version of Silent Hill you see throughout this entire game is not what the town actually looks like. This is just what the town looks like through James's eyes since you're playing as him. The town looks different for everybody because it's a manifest of people's thoughts and fears to create a personal nightmare for that person that only they can see. I have a lot more to say, but I've been glazing this game for way too long now. You get the idea, the game is a masterpiece. But one last thing though, while I was writing sins later on in the script, Konami conveniently drops a trailer for Silent Hill F. Silent Hill F is going to be the next mainline installment in the Silent Hill franchise since Downpour back in 2012, making it about 13 years since we had a Silent Hill game that wasn't a remake, a dogshit remastered collection, a version of the original Silent Hill 2 shoved inside a pachinko machine, a dungeon crawler, or playable demos. Long story short, I'm excited for it, and it seems like I'm not the only one who thinks so since the feedback from the trailer seems to be mostly positive. The future of the Silent Hill series certainly seems bright.
I'm sorry, I was just...
Hey, it's okay. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm kind of lost.
How can you be lost when you already have an entire map that leads you to the Silent Hill Ranch? The Silent Hill Ranch leads towards town. When James asked Angela for directions, the direction she pointed to was towards the Silent Hill Ranch anyway, and the Silent Hill Ranch was already marked on James's map. Look, I get this is supposed to be the game's way of introducing Angela Orozco, but if James is smart enough to solve the difficult puzzles in the game, he's smart enough to connect the dots from looking at his map. And I know it's difficult to see with the fog everywhere, but I could have just stayed to the path from just looking at his map.
Hey! Wait!
Strange how you're able to talk without moving your lips. When James finds a small portable radio inside the abandoned house that's already on for some reason, he's able to use it to know when enemies are nearby during gameplay, and the portable radio will still work throughout the entire game without needing to recharge with any batteries. There are multiple times throughout the entire game where James just sticks his arm in random places for no reason without even knowing if there's anything of use in there. Also, who the hell just steals a jukebox number from Neely's bar just to shove it inside some random black goopy hole in the wall in some random apartment? The mannequins in Silent Hill 2 have to be the scariest enemy type next to Pyramid Head. The mannequins often try their best to blend in with the environment so they can get the jump on you. They do this so often and do it so well to the point where you're going to be paranoid enough to check every single corner of every single room you enter just to make sure there isn't a mannequin hiding. Later on in the game, during places like the Toluca Prison, the Labyrinth, and the Lakeview Hotel parts of the game, the mannequins will start to crawl on walls like they're spiders, making them the freakiest enemies to deal with. However, with that being said, there are still times where their hiding spots are a bit obvious.
Hey! Wait!
In spite of Laura kicking the keys away from you, they're still really not all that far from where you're standing. You can still use the wooden plank in your inventory to swipe the keys to you. It even has nails on it. Come to think of it, why didn't James try doing that in the first place instead of trying to reach it with his hands? How does this guy in the fridge even die for his body to look like that? Did Pyramid Head and the two mannequins literally just spawn in the kitchen? I'm sure the intent was for him to have entered through the big red door from the otherworld version of the Woodside Apartments, but I didn't hear the door open. How was a wooden plank able to break through a wall? There are plenty of times where James will swing at a cracked wall very hard and the wooden plank will not break and the nails on the plank will not bend. I know the wall is cracked, meaning it'd be easier to break, but I still find it hard to believe that the wall will be so easy to break that even a wooden plank with nails on it can break through it. Why would you just stick your hand down a random toilet? You don't even know if there's anything of use in there. To make things worse, bro doesn't even bother washing his hands afterwards. How the hell was Laura, a little girl, able to climb on top of a big ass wall that's like triple her size? Come to think of it, how was Laura able to get to Silent Hill after running away from an orphanage or hospital? Now I know this is implied that Eddie gave her a lift to Silent Hill, given that those two seem to know each other when James arrives at the movie theater later on. But why would Eddie, someone who killed a guy who was fat shaming him and his dog and is currently on the run from the law, spot some random little girl and take the time to pick her up and drive her to Silent Hill? Can I just take the moment to appreciate how fun and addicting it is to break glass in video games? Something about breaking glass in this game reminds me of how much fun I used to do it when playing The Last of Us Part 2. I also love how when you randomly do things like breaking glass, shooting the sky, abandoning your current objective, killing an enemy type, or even run to a red square to save, Maria will comment on all of those things and acknowledge that some of what you're doing is a little weird. When you go to the bowling alley, James still says that iconic line from the 2001 original that became a popular meme.
This town's full of monsters. Who could just sit here and eat pizza?
Who just sticks a lead pipe inside a running engine vehicle? The rest of the town looks like its electricity has been cut off for quite some time, but somehow the Haves Night Strip Club has power. In this cutscene at the Haves Night Strip Club that was added in the remake that the original apparently didn't have, and a couple of other cutscenes, it's what I'm going to use as an example to show how this game uses realism as a tool through visual storytelling that abides by the rule of show don't tell. So after Maria successfully gaslights James into feeling bad for wanting to leave the strip club too early, she pulls out a drink of alcohol and offers a cup of it to James. Now after James chooses not to drink the cup of alcohol, Maria looks at James, looks at the cup of alcohol, then looks back at James as like one last attempt to get him to take a sip before giving up and drinking it herself. Afterwards, you can still very much see that James is still tempted to take a shot but decides not to. Now what that scene shows just from looking at the character's facial mocap animations is that James has a drinking problem. In other words, James used to be an alcoholic who is now recently trying to get himself to stop. That's why his facial animations are the way they are in this scene. Or even at the movie theater where James says,
At least you got your appetite back.
If you pay attention to Eddie's facial animation, you can tell that he took that comment as if James was trying to call him fat, and his attitude towards James noticeably changes, even though James didn't really mean it like that. Or in the hospital section of the game in the cutscene before Laura locks James in the room, when Laura lies about having a certain letter from Mary in a certain room, a part of your brain will subconsciously notice that something is off after paying attention to Laura's facial animation. James, what are you going underneath? It's not like the gate was chained shut.
This is boring.
Yeah, Laura, I would think the movie's boring too if I was just staring at a white screen the entire time. Where the hell did Eddie find pizza and ice cream in an abandoned town like Silent Hill?
Are you alone here, Eddie?
What kind of question is that? You saw Laura talking with Eddie a minute ago. What is the health drink doing in the restroom inside a hospital?
It's nothing. Probably just a hangover.
A hangover? From what? Drinking half a glass of alcohol at the Haven Night Strip Club? Also, where'd you get the pills from? Why would you climb down a hole like that? You falling and being trapped in a super tight space like that would normally lead to you being trapped and suffocated to death. Now listen, hear me out. So this entire time while I was running around the other version of the hospital collecting keys, fighting enemies, and figuring out combination numbers, all James had to do was pull down the curtains behind him to move on? Talk about wasting the player's time. Or is it that opening the empty box somehow caused the curtains to fall down?
Anyway? What do you mean, anyway? I was almost killed back there.
Nobody told you to leave the hospital bed. My James checked up on you 3 times and you weren't even there the 3rd time. Also, even though Maria is a Tulupa, meaning she's an entity born from James's mind but created by the town of Silent Hill, which is why the town literally spawned her in front of James when they first met. The town of Silent Hill didn't spawn her here for this cutscene to happen. The door that you end up going through after the cutscene was actually locked before the cutscene but was suddenly unlocked after the cutscene. The only logical explanation as to how this is the case is if Maria came through those doors, which very clearly means she could roam around on her own and has been before finding James. But if that's the case, how did Maria make it to the otherworld version of the abandoned hospital?
I know. It's just... something doesn't feel right.
I got a bad feeling about this cliche.
Come on. It's gonna be fine.
Don't offer the same hand you used to shove down a toilet to look for a clock-in puzzle and random holes in the wall. Maria's ahead of James, but when the cutscene starts, James is ahead of Maria. After Maria gets killed by Pyramid Head, James falls to his knees as he feels like he had failed her. Then this track plays. I said it at the beginning of this video and I'll say it again. Akira Yamaoka absolutely nails the soundtrack in this game. Upon leaving the elevator, the track continues before quietly fading into silence. There are no puzzles, no enemies to fight, it's just you wandering around looking for what to do next in pure silence, and the game just lets you feel it. I should have said this earlier, but what is the logic behind James finding random old syringes and being like, yeah, let me just inject this random unknown substance into my veins? The key to the historical museum in Silent Hill is within a metal box inside a local park. Whenever James is about to jump down a hole or reach his arm into something, the game will force you to press the action button twice. I get the purpose behind it. It was to try to make the players second guess themselves, sort of like a are you sure you want to do this type of thing. But the more and more this kept happening, the less it made me second guess myself and the more annoying it started to become. Also, every time James jumps down a hole, he always lands on solid concrete and still manages to be fine. Okay, I waited to this point in the video to rant about a certain group of individuals who would often overuse the W word that I really hope you're all tired of hearing just as much as I am. But before I get to that, it is crucial that I go over a very sensitive topic that this game displays when it comes to Angela. That sensitive topic is sexual assault. So upon entering the Labyrinth, you'll come across a newspaper. In that newspaper, you'll read about an aggressive, abusive, alcoholic lumberjack named Thomas being stabbed multiple times in the neck and torso. Thomas's last name in the newspaper has been scratched out, but based on the first 3 letters of his last name, it's really starting to seem like Thomas has the same last name as Angela. If you remember, Angela's last name is Orozco, which perfectly lines up with the first 3 letters of the last name that was scratched out in the newspaper. Remember that scene with Angela in front of the giant mirror on the ground holding a knife in the Otherworld version of the Woodside Apartments? In that cutscene, you may have noticed that the knife had blood on it. That's because that's the exact same knife Angela used to murder her father, aka Thomas Orozco, the father who would often physically and sexually abuse Angela. The design of Abstract Daddy, that's the monster's actual name by the way, is quite literally the embodiment of Angela being R-worded by her dad, as it's literally a man pinning someone down on the bed for him. You know, it's kind of funny how anti-woke grifters and very close-minded longtime Silent Hill fans with nostalgia bias claim this game has been censored. Meanwhile, the game displays and heavily expands upon extremely sensitive themes and topics that most modern games today wouldn't touch with a 90-foot pole. If I had to list up the most annoying groups of people on the internet, it would definitely be the anti-woke or the go woke go broke crowd. Now, I normally call these types of people grifters, and while there are different types of grifters, the type of grifter I'm talking about is what I like to call media grifters or anti-woke grifters. What these types of grifters do is spawn outrage by rage baiting about any type of property and media that typically falls into the category of movies, TV shows, and video games. In the midst of them doing that, they do so by purposely spreading false, misleading narratives and misinformation to their gullible audience to spark outrage after attracting attention to stay relevant. They often pretend to be upset to ignite outrage for personal gain and to make money by ad revenue through lazy, low-effort content with lazy dogshit thumbnails. Their thumbnails would normally and typically look something like this. The left side of the thumbnail would have big white and red text in all caps on top of a black bar, right next to a horribly photoshopped image of whatever they're about to grift about. These people don't even actually believe the stuff that they're saying. They just rely on and capitalize off the gullibility and hostile bias of an audience or fan base for their own personal gain and to fill their pockets. And the reason a lot of them basically rely on your hostile bias is so you won't scrutinize anything they're saying, even when they intentionally get something wrong. A lot of them don't actually play the games that they're grifting about, or even play video games at all. Love to complain when something doesn't or think it doesn't align with their right-wing politics and agenda and spreading misleading woke narratives. This is a problem in any form of media, but it's especially a problem in gaming since a lot of studios at one point were shutting down, along with people losing their jobs because these grifters and fake gamers don't actually support these game developers who make pretty cool games, or if they do, it was to fuel whatever agenda they had. The only reason they keep getting away with stuff like this is because we keep letting them. People love being lied to, and I know that's the case because when a media grifter tells people what they want to hear, it isn't necessarily going to be the truth, but they would be validating their feelings and repeating what they already want to believe in their own little echo chamber of delusion by doing so. I don't know what's up with people and whining about the way fictional female characters look like in video games, but those people genuinely need to go outside and build genuine, healthy relationship with actual women that exist and not their anime pillow. Look, I'm not against good-looking, attractive female characters in video games, but there's nothing wrong with them looking like normal people. So to the people who keep whining about Angela's appearance in this game, I have a genuine question for you. What the fuck is wrong with you? You motherfuckers are actually upset because a formerly sexually abused R-worded victim who is currently suicidal isn't fuckable. To make things even worse, not only did these people unironically make Angela look worse by changing the way her face was shaped, but I also remember seeing anti-woke media grifters trying to sell this misleading woke narrative that Angela was always meant to look pretty. Or that Angela was a transgender, which she's not, with titles like, she was given the DEI treatment, turning Angela into Trangela. Or my personal favorite, Silent Hill 2 was ruined by transgender. So as you can see, these grifters really just latch on to whatever they think will be controversial. The worst part about this is that these grifters and their counterparts will never truly go away. Shit like this will keep happening, and while there thankfully have been people who push back against these types of people, it's not enough in my opinion. I know we'll never be able to completely run these people off the internet, but maybe one day we can at least kick them out of the gaming space. This isn't really a sin on the game itself, but more so on the cat piss surrounding it, because people like that legitimately need to be lined up and bitch slapped.
Just before. Don't you remember?
Are you not gonna ask what she's doing in a chair behind bars? I know more people felt this way about the Toluca prison section of the game, but for me it was the Labyrinth. I don't know why, but to me it feels like the Labyrinth section goes on forever. James doesn't even know if this is getting him any closer to finding Mary. Why can't James just use Angela's knife to cut the rope? Not only does Eddie shrug off a couple of shotgun rounds, but you also don't get to unlock his revolver through New Game Plus.
Did I scare you?
The only other ways to get to the Lakeview Hotel were blocked off, which is why James had to row here by boat. So unless Laura somehow has the ability to teleport herself to the Lakeview Hotel, her already being here before James should be impossible. Due to Laura's childlike innocence and happy mind, she hasn't seen any monsters, meaning to her, Silent Hill is just a normal empty town. Even with that being the case though, I still find it weird that Laura never finds anything off about the town's vibe or even that it's empty.
It's empty. Laura, there's nothing in it.
I must have lost it. I gotta find it.
Laura!
Laura will now disappear out of existence until a plot needs her again, since she's nowhere to be found anywhere around the Lakeview Hotel. The devs at Konami for some reason thought it was necessary to add a whole ass cutscene of James grabbing the stuff out of his locker and back into his inventory.
Promise you'll take me again, James.
Hey, there you are. Do you know where Mary is? Come on. Talk to me.
Mary's gone. She's dead.
Liar. That's a lie.
No. It's the truth.
She died because she was sick.
I killed her.
Killer! Why'd you do it? I hate you! I want her back. Give her back to me. I knew it. You didn't care about her. I hate you, James! I hate you! I hate you! I hate you! She was always waiting for you. Why? Why?
I'm sorry. Mary, you know, isn't here. It's hot as hell in here.
Yeah, James, I would think the entire room was hot too if everything was on fire. Silent Hill 2 has 8 endings in total. There are 3 of them you can unlock in your first playthrough and the rest are New Game Plus. I'm not going to go over all the endings, but I am going to go over the ones you can unlock in your first playthrough. The gameplay of Silent Hill 2 as well as the way you play the game is actually a part of the game's story. A lot of the things you do in this game are actually unscripted choices that rack up to a hidden point system that could lead towards a certain ending. Doing stuff like not healing immediately after being struck by an enemy, or inspecting Angela's knife is telling the game that James doesn't really care about living all that much and that he's contemplating suicide just like Angela, which can earn you points towards the in-water ending, which seems to be most most people's favorite. Prioritizing keeping your health at max immediately after being struck by an enemy, not interacting with Maria too much, frequently staring at Mary's letter or photo, choosing the rotten apple instead of the right one during the mirror puzzle in the Lakeview Hotel part of the game, walking through the rusted egg door after fighting the 2 pyramid heads, and listening to the full conversation in the long hallway are all things that could lead you points towards the leave ending, which is my personal favorite. It's the only ending that explains why James did what he did, with Mary's verbal abuse towards him certainly not helping. It shows that James not only cares enough about his well-being to forgive himself for what he's done, but also to continue living and possibly adopting Laura just like how Mary probably would have wanted. Doing things like keeping Maria safe, constantly interacting with her, placing the woman's coin on the top at the end of the coin puzzle, frequently visiting her at the hospital and the labyrinth, avoid looking at Mary's letter or photo, avoid reading anything once you get to the Silent Hill Museum, place the ripe apple instead of the rotten one in the mirror puzzle, avoid listening to any of the tape recordings, walking through the Scarlet Egg door and skipping the full conversation in the long hallway are all things that could lead you points towards the Maria ending, which is the worst, hardest, and rarest ending to get on your first playthrough. Now obviously you do need to do more stuff to actually get those endings, but I'm just using the stuff I've listed as an example. Every single choice you make is very natural for the player because while making these choices, they don't even realize that they're making a choice or that what they're doing can determine the fate of their character and who their character really is. Because some of the choices you're making is very human for the character of James. Even though all your choices do is affect the ending, it's not like a choice-based game where the game straight up tells you that you're making a decision that affects the ending or something later on. Not every single newcomer like myself is going to play this game the exact same way. Whether or not how often you heal, how often you inspect a certain item, or even which item you place in a certain puzzle giving you points towards a certain ending wouldn't even be on the player's mind because they're just trying to play the game normally. The game watches what you do and uses that to rack up points to generate its ending. What this game does is something that games like The Last of Us Part 2 could have done. The closest thing to another video game doing anything even remotely close to what this game does when it comes to its choices was Spec Ops: The Line. But even in that game, your choices are very explicit and binary. While in this game, the choices you make aren't exactly binary or explicit, and the ending is determined by your actions and not through scripted events, which is why I say it's unscripted. How did Laura make it back to the streets near Rosewater Park when the only way to and from the Lakeview Hotel was to row here by boat, which is how I assume James got here? There is no reason for Laura to still be here anyways. Her only reason to come to Silent Hill was to find Mary.
Better do something about that cough.
Womp womp. Mary's pillow is not an unlockable melee weapon in New Game Plus.